So I figured with the three shot coming up soon, um, let's go over some information that will be useful for both players and viewers. The players will get their own specific video, but let's get some general information for the viewers, as well as just, in the terms of our games that we've played, the lore of the multiverse in our games. Um, this is going to come out before our videos about the actual campaign themselves that we are currently working on and making. But this is something I figured I should do now. So this is going to be, I'm going to be going over the entire section of multiversal info in my book. If people who do have my book, they'll find this at the very back. It starts at page 540. It's not super long. Then we're also going to go over a little bit of information that is going to be useful for the campaign itself. So, go ahead and getting started. Let's go ahead and just get started. So, the best way to explain the entire multiverse in our lore, we're going to start from the beginning. So, before the split of the what was once called the multidimensional field into the infinite multiverses. So, before this is not like actual D&D lore. This is the lore that we have created for our own reasons for why a multiverse exists in D&D, because I mean it technically can, because people can run the same campaign multiple times with different things, or different people can, right, you know what I mean. I don't have to explain this to you. Before there were multiple dimensions, there was only one. In its early infancy, one of the first gods that came into belief early humanoids would pray to. This god was worshipped as the god of the sun and moon, and came into belief that they were the god of everything. Being alone in their divinity gave them, well, endless power, because you don't have anyone to share it with. Because of this endless power, they were simply referred to as just the Endless, also known as the First God. Being alone in their cosmic power, the Endless wanted to create. Their thought that they had was to create infinite versions of the universes to believe to let's create infinite versions of the universes to believe and to subsequently create. In this creation process to create all these different universes, the Endless created about a dozen universes at first as a small scale experiment. At first, this process seemed to be a success. As with more universes that existed, each universe had its own humanoids, starting to believe in many different gods, which gave him divine powers they could relate to. However, the other new gods all had the powers he had, and traveled between the dozen realities, and after a few years, these gods started a war between other universes in them, and for more power for themselves, as you know they will, because gods are power hungry. At least most of them are. Not all of them are in D&D, or in reality, for whatever you believe in. You do you. But they, were power hungry. So the Endless was only able to watch as his creations began to tear themselves apart, and so he destroyed all but his original universe. He had no intention to leave the universe so alone, but he had a new idea. He was going to create more dimensions again, but this time, no being would be able to travel between the different dimensions except for himself and those that he chooses to. Any being, gods included, that attempted to travel between the universes he had created would have their body and soul instantly destroyed. His plan worked. He created infinite universes that each had different things happening in them. He created the first multiverse. Though he decided to call this set the multidimensional field. He had one herald or champion in each dimension that would keep him updated on the infinite creations he had made. However, in many of the universes, things would change. After a few hundred years of this, in most universes, not all of them, along came a human man. This human's name is Altasan Versa. Altasan was born into uh, the S word that YouTube doesn't like, to a band of elves. His whole child was racked with torture to get work done the elves didn't wish to do. Each year, these elves would pay tribute to the gods they had at the time. The tributes would be meats, fruits, and 5 of their workers. When Altasan was 15, he was chosen as a sacrificial tribute to the gods. However, the ceremony was interrupted before he was killed, as an ancient black dragon attacked and distracted the elf commune. The reasons for this is unknown to Altasan, but he didn't care. He was just trying to escape. And which he did escape during the carnage, and he hid away for some time. Some years later, he was found by a human civilization who took him in and trained him to defend himself. He had taken up magic very easily, and the scholars of the city discovered he was a very capable sorcerer. The arcanists and wizards began to train him in the ways of magic, and soon had caught the attention of the city's princess, a dark-skinned, elegant woman named Victoria Tiakau. His magical renown was known across the whole city, and the princess wished to give him a push to assist the city with their gifts, and not to pursue personal gain. After a few years, the two had fallen in love and gotten married. Unfortunately, things don't always end well for everyone. Only 3 years into their marriage, Victoria Tiakau, the new queen, had died while giving birth to their first child, and the child also did not survive the birth. At this time, the city didn't have any proper clerics, as the city was not religious, and they did not have any way to revive the dead. Altasan had become furious with the gods and with existence. He knew of the gods, but most gods refused to even come near this human city of anti-worshippers who refused to worship even after being shown many signs. So he spent the next few years alone in the castle, working on a special magic item. Normally, the creation of such an item that he had created would have been impossible, but this was back before Karsus' folly. This was a long time ago. And great and powerful magic was very powerful. If you don't know what Karsus' folly is, I'm not doing a video on it. Go look it up. It's crazy. It's a lot. I don't want to go over it. So, during this time, Altasan had created a pair of bracers that allowed him to absorb the power of a god. He hated them, he despised them, after all the bad things he went through, and none of them ever came to his aid. So, he built these to absorb them, and the gods never knew because they never even bothered approaching his city because it was a worthless cause to their eyes. Well, Altasan enacted his plan. He chose a god carefully, one in which no one would notice if they suddenly disappeared. The god that Altasan chose was erased from history and from the memories of all. His ascension to godhood was a surprise to all the other gods, and a surprise to almost all of existence. Most people who knew of the gods or worshipped gods was all of a sudden like, this god showed up in our own headcanon. Altasan inspired Karsus' spell, which he tried to use to ascend to godhood, but he didn't succeed. Yet again, go watch that video if you care about that. So, using his newly found divinity, Altasan attempted to create his own multiverse. He attempted to create this to find a world in which his wife and his stillbirth child were alive in. What was created is what most people refer to as a multiverse. However, the one that Altasan created can be traversed. So, how does this work with the multidimensional field and the multiverse? So, the multiverse isn't infinite, but let's also say there's multiple multiverses. So imagine it in kind of a tree, and or kind of like how a family tree is kind of shaped. Each little bubble is a dimension, and inside of a dimension holds holds a singular multiverse. This way, creatures in my book that are called apex beings, only supposed to exist once in the multiverse, can be played out by multiple people in their own campaigns because it's just in a different dimension that has similar things but different things happened. So essentially, in multiple of these dimensions that the Endless had watched over and created, inside of them from what one single timeline was suddenly split into hundreds of thousands to almost a million, to millions. Just millions of different timelines, and all encapsulated in their dimensions. The multidimensional field now had thousands, hundreds of thousands of multiverses inside of them. The Endless, of course, did not appreciate this gesture, as this made his job a lot harder than just watching over a few thousand dimensions. Now, a lot of them were millions of times larger. So, he decided to punish him. While Alderson was not trying to make the first god's job harder when doing this, his whole intention was to find a timeline where, yeah, like I said, his wife was still alive and so he could be with her. But instead, as a punishment, the Endless created a long-term plan. You see, the Endless has a special ability to choose what creatures become apex beings or not. This is what it causes them to exist only once. And it exist only once in the multiverse. So, he made Victoria Tia Cow, his wife, an apex being. As such, in the multiverses that he created, in each of the individual dimensions where this happened, and he created a multiverse, she only existed once, which means she was not in any of the other timelines. So she was always dead. He made her an apex being, and he wasn't done yet. He also gave Victoria an endless cycle of reincarnation, but in a way where their new incarnation would always despise and be against Altasan. Over the next hundreds of years, the name Altasan became simplified to Atlas, who was known as the god of the multiverse. Or at least the god of the known multiverse, as there are endless multiverses now, but most people aren't aware of that existence. Such is the story. Cannot be traversed anymore. Such is the story of the multiverse, which is traversable, and the multidimensional field, which cannot be traversed. Each multiverse is forever separated, but in this way, multiple people can play campaigns with apex beings and have it all be canon and possible. The current incarnation with Victoria Tia Cow is the very writer of this book, not me. In the book, the lore is that it was written by Willow Arin. I'm going to show both pieces of art I have of her. The Demi-Sin of Instinct. Yes, there's some lore there. She has a lot of titles. Victoria is cursed to always reincarnate when their current incarnation dies, and Atlas is cursed to always suffer in knowing that his past lover despises him and will forever always despise him for his sins of ruining the multidimensional field, taking something from perfect infinity to endless chaotic infinity, with only hopes that a new multiversal war does not start back up again. So that's the lore of the multiverse, at least in our terms, and how this is going to work in the 3-shot. So this 3-shot coming up is actually not really going to deal too much with the multidimensional field. It's just going to deal with just a multiverse. But this multiverse is based off of our previous campaign that we played, so we will be going over a few things that will be somewhat important to it. So for this 3-shot, for viewers and players alike, this one's useful for both of you. The party are members of a unit called MOTA, M-O-T-A, the Multiversal Offices of Temporal Anomalies. This MOTA, I kind of imagine it a little bit like the TVA, but instead of particularly protecting a singular timeline, it is just protecting the multiverse as a whole. They're not going to try to focus so much effort on saving one or two timelines, one timeline from itself, but from threats from other timelines try to start dealing with things and trying to intertangle with each other, they're here to shut them down. They have multiple strike forces, and these strike forces are meant to go out and take care of the problems that they would take care of the problem creatures that they would end up having to go against. As such, the let's go over a few that the party would have that this party would have already helped to take care of. There was these ones exist in my book. There is a dragon that devours light that they were able to capture and put to execution in Moda. There was there was a set of 6 powerful mages. Some of them were good, some of them were not. The ones that were not were actually executed in their own timeline, and as soon as they started being revived, have gotten captured by the party, brought into Moda, and erased from existence in this particular timeline. Those 6 being the Magical Menagerie. If you know them, you know them. But there isn't many Apex beings, at least left that were written in here. A lot of the other ones aren't as important. But what we can go over, so I'm just scrolling through to make sure I didn't forget nothing with this, because no script is best script. The party's mission. This 3-shot is actually going to be starting with the party returning from capturing Azgarath, the perfect demon. Now, the reasons they were capturing Azgarath, because I'm not going to get too much into this in the actual start, but just to let you guys know here, the reasons the party is going to be capturing Azgarath and why they are doing this is because Azgarath is, besides him being, the demon, the demi-sin of perfection, he is a large problem. In our world, Azgarath is essentially the person who is in charge of the entirety of the Abyss and essentially runs everything down there. And the Abyss is connected to every single timeline. So he essentially is a connection through all timelines in which he can torture as much people as he wants in the Abyss for all the dead who end up there. But he also he had a lot of problems with our party. You'll see in the video, as those videos are going to come out, there was a lot of issues and fighting between him and the party, and the party for the 3-shot is going to be starting off the 3-shot and actually bringing him back to base because they had captured him, because Azgarath, as they fought him, as they're going to go to encounter him off screen before this starts, had just been in an encounter with something very dangerous, and it had worn him down. Now, what could wear down Azgarath? And I will say, he did not kill it. Whatever he was fighting got away, because it noticed the party was there, and it didn't want to be known, and it was unknown. All that the party would notice is that this individual they were fighting was a humanoid wearing blood red stained armor, and that was it. But because Azgarath was worn down out of legendary saves, they were able to use one of their ensnaring chains and to essentially arrest him and bring him back to Moda. So Moda is run by Willow Arin. She created it. And Moda exists, for most of the times it exists between dimensions. But in this, but during this time, Moda exists in another dimension, because wherever the facility Moda exists, they can lock it off so no creatures can enter or exit that timeline without them approving of it. And the reason they are currently outside of being between dimensions is because the timeline they are in currently has 2 very large threats, and they don't want those 2 threats to escape. So they've essentially locked their base in this other timeline in a place where nothing can approach them, but that way their 2 targets they have currently can't escape from this timeline. So they know where they are, and they are working towards getting them, but there is also people on the planet who are working towards taking down these threats as well, and they try to not interfere directly in the planet too much if they can. They will still do it somewhat here and there. But yes, so this is kind of a lot of information you do need to know. But let's say with one last thing. So there is a list of the most powerful, of the top 10 most powerful entities in the multiverse, at least according to our lore. So some of these are not going to be super important, at least in this video or the 3-shot. Some of these are actually going to be mentioned in our campaign videos. So when those are coming out, go ahead and give those a watch. You can get briefings on the campaign. But let's go ahead and start up. So number 10, the Strongest Justice. They are essentially, imagine the virtue of justice losing their will to hold back. So imagine kind of like if Injustice Superman was also an angel with divine magic. And that's pretty much what you got. A serious problem. So that's why they're number 10 in strength in the multiverse. Number 9 is Main Timeline Varus. That is my character in the Jericho campaign. If you want to understand why he becomes such a threat, watch the whole thing once it's out. It's not out yet. I'm sorry, I keep telling you to go watch this, but it's not out yet. Number 8 is the Weavemind Mistress Sosti. This is a variant of Sosti the Snake from our campaign. Sosti the Yuan-ti. They are essentially kind of like a psychic, essentially almost like a psychic god. Almost there. Kind of imagine something, if you've been watching Critical Role, especially up to late, like the I won't say it by its name to not give any spoilers, but the Campaign 3 Big Threat, something similar to that. That's kind of what she is. Not quite as strong. No, probably about as strong as that. Yeah. Number 7 is the King of Pride, Daniel. Daniel, one of the NPCs from our campaign. I don't think I even have to think, but Daniel, one of the NPCs from our campaign. The King of Pride, Daniel, is, the most arrogant pride there is. But as well as because he is one of the last entities alive in his timeline, which I can explain when we get to number 2, because number 2 is the other entity that's still alive in his timeline. But essentially he's so powerful because pride gets more powerful the more arrogant they are, which definitely gets very crazy, but he is so powerful because he is pretty much the only person left, and he's like, come on, you can't even kill me, I'm great, aren't I? Essentially that kind of idea. Number 6 is Azrael. Azrael is a copy of Asgarath. He's not as strong as Asgarath because he is a pacifist. He does not fight unless he has to. Number 5 is the Goddess of Storms, Mistral. Essentially, imagine a mixture between like Thor, Storm. I'm trying to think of other really powerful lightning wielders. I can't think of many off the top of my head, but essentially just one of the most powerful. They are the strongest lightning wielder in the entire multiverse. Put it at that and you'll understand. Oh, okay. Number 4 is Asgarath. We don't have to discuss him too much, discuss him already a little bit. Number 3 is, his name is Dacron, or at least that's his nickname. Dacron is another variant of Varus, but this one is one in a different timeline. We actually had a different campaign where this person had showed up. And they, by the end of that campaign, became, I think, the god of creation. So, yes, number 3 is Dacron, the god of creation, because he was a very powerful mortal, very powerful demon, and then he became a god. And he is extremely intelligent and creative. So, being able to create anything, he is a powerful threat. Number 2, we'll actually get back to. Number 1 is the Endless, because of course he created the multiverse. Of course he's the strong. He created the multidimensional field. But number 2 is the Forsaken. The Forsaken is the other person who is alive in the timeline with the King of Pride, Daniel. The two of them are mortal enemies. They will fight each other. They fight each other endlessly for, well, I say endlessly. They've been fighting each other alone, just the two of them, for about 60 years in that world. So they've been fighting for a very long time. Now, this is important because what I can say is uh, this is kind of one of the major plot threads. The two of these fight is a major plot thread in this 3-shot. I won't say too much more because some of that is going to be revealed during the 3-shot of things that are going on. But essentially, these are things that the party will know. This list is in Moda of, hey, these are the strongest people, and there's like marks off for which ones are the biggest threats. Biggest threats being the Forsaken, Asgarvath, the King of Pride Daniel, Weavemind Mistress Sosti, and the strongest Justice. Those are the ones that are actual possible threats. In which, when actually getting into the thing, saying that number 4 is captured at the very beginning of the campaign makes it fun. But if he's number 4, here's the thing. What was he losing against? That is going to be part of the draw of this 3-shot. So, I've just been calling it the 3-shot for a while. Don't mind the color changes because I am switching between tabs right now because no speech is best speech. No script is best script. That's the word. But, yes, I've been calling it the 3-shot for a while now. Even among the actual Discord and me trying to talk with people as we're trying to plan this out and get this all ready. Well, it has a name now. It's called Eternity's Hunt. And I'm just going to leave you with that. Good luck figuring that one out.